What's going on? What's going on, everybody? TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, the world. What's going on, everybody? As we all know, this is Men's Mental Health Month. Um, I want to touch on that a little bit. So, we all know that when it comes to men and their feelings or their emotions, a lot of people don't usually hear them out, or in a lot of cases, a lot of people can't relate. And for those who can relate, and for those men who would like to speak to other men, a lot of the times we're telling each other things like, yo, you a man, you be alright, or you toughen up, but it's never what's truly needed. And this is why so many men committing suicide or falling into depressed places, or even more, becoming angry. So fitness is a major component to help with that. And I know, some people feel like fitness is not for everybody, but it can be if you allow it to be. It's a place where you can allow yourself to be expressive, maybe not so much verbally, but in a physical sense, and it could release a lot of stress, and it could get you out of a dark space if you allow it to. I could say that if you sit in idle time, that shit'll drive you crazy. It'll have you always thinking about things you shouldn't be thinking about. It'll have you always in a place where, you're in the darkest moments of your life, or some of us fall into smoking, drinking. So a lot of us fall into sexual areas to try to suppress the pain, or try to fill some type of void that never feels fulfilled. And sometimes I feel like I don't have nobody to talk to either. I know that I know that I do have people to talk to, but sometimes I just feel like people don't understand, or the sincerity is not there, or the genuineness is not there, and it just seems like it's just fake and shit. So, I know what it is to internalize, and I know how unhealthy that is. So, I just want to say that when men try to express themselves, they're told to man up, they're told you're going to be all right, and they told, you're a man, you can handle it. And people treat men sometimes like they're robots, and it's funny because the pressure comes from other men, and it's like they act like they're not going through some shit too. So men is very I don't want to say funny, but a little indifferent in that sense. So a lot of the times as men, we tend to internalize a lot of our pain. And a human being can only take but so much. I don't care how big you are, how strong you are, whether you're tall, short, fat, skinny, muscular, it really doesn't matter. When the mental start to crash, man, we start falling apart. So, in a lot of cases, men are suffering. We go outside, we put on that strong face, and, we smile, we laugh, we joke with people we're around, but a lot of the times we're crashing, we're melting, and, nobody sees it, And in New York here, if you ask a man, how are you? The first thing you say, yo, I'm good. That's never an answer. That's never a real answer. I'm good could mean so many things when somebody say it here. And I think men say that in a lot of places, outside of New York as well. We are so not used to expressing ourselves that we'll just say anything to avoid the expression because we sit with so much pain. And I just want men to know you're not alone. But the one thing I can say is I've learned to transfer that into the fitness realm. Being able to take that anger, that frustration, that heartbreak, loss of family members, loss of whoever was close to me, and channeling that into something, that could help me down the line. Not just with how I look, but how I felt, opportunities that came along the lines, the great people who I've met throughout the years. So, I've gotten to travel places, I've gotten to do some things, in this journey. It changes your whole life for in so many ways if you will just allow it to do so. I want to definitely put together something at some point in my life for men's mental health, because there's not a lot of things out here for men. And I feel like those things need to be put in place because there's so many men who are suffering in the dark. And I just want to say to any man who's watching this, I don't care if I know you or I don't know you. If you going through something, you could reach out to me. I'm nobody special, I'm just a regular guy, but I understand pain, I understand frustration, I understand poverty, I understand all of that. So, I don't mind talking to you man to man. You're not going to be less than a man to me, and maybe I could be a person you can express those things to without worrying about judgment or those words being weaponized against you, because I know how that is also. I just want to tell you guys, don't give up on yourself. Know that God is always there. I don't know if you don't believe in God, but if you don't, I just want you to know that he's still there regardless of the fact. I know a lot of men, we live in our egos and we could be very prideful, but just know that there's other men who understand. And, I'm not going to be the guy to tell you, hey, you be all right. You a man. Suck it up, because that ain't going to work either. And on that note, if this could touch one person and change one person's energy, life, I don't know. I hope it does, because at the end of the day, we all kind of need this. So with that being said, man, I just want everybody to be blessed in this chaotic world we living in, this chaotic time. And again, just know that you're not alone. And I'm going to just leave that here. And like I always say, love, peace, and hair grease. I'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy yourselves. We talk soon.